Hello, team. Welcome to another ATP Geopolitics with myself, Jonathan MSP. This is Ukraine War news update, second part thereof for the 24th of February 2024. Slava Ukrainia. I've just been looking at how to pronounce that exactly. I was wondering whether it's Slava Ukraini, Slava Ukrainia, because I said at the end of the last video, Slava Ukrainia. And I was like, oh, is it a yeah at the end? And actually, from what I can gather, it appears to be exactly that. So there you go. So here it is, just to let you know.
Slava Ukraini. When somebody says to you Slava Ukraini,
Slava Ukrainie. Anyway, let's get on. So, Prime Minister of Denmark has stated that the only reason the delivery of F-16 is delayed is infrastructure. Fighter jets require serious infrastructure at Ukrainian airfields. This is one of the worries throughout, that F-16s require pretty decent runways to be able to operate from compared to things like the Gripen. They can suck foreign object debris up into their basically into their engines, their air intake, and that can create problems. And they've had to, I guess, sort out Ukrainian air bases, not just for that, but for the general infrastructure maintenance. They take quite a lot of effort, F-16s per flight hour, to keep them in the air. So that is that. Now, being the second year anniversary, we are seeing quite a few announcements today. I'm sure there'll be more coming through. Spain is preparing a new package of military aid, said the Ukrainian Minister of Foreign Affairs of Ukraine, Dmytro Kuleba, after a meeting with his Spanish colleague Alvarez. According to him, the package in particular will include ammunition. Yes. UK, I think this is on the back of the 200 brimstones announced yesterday. I don't know if that's part of this or whether these are two separate things, but the UK did make an announcement yesterday and is now following this up with a $311 million aid package announcement to replenish Ukraine's artillery supplies. On the second anniversary of Russia's full-scale invasion, UK pledges £245 million to enhance Ukraine's artillery ammunition reserves within the next year. That is incredibly important. With all of these, it's like, yeah, that's brilliant. Why was that not announced last June or last, whenever? It's great. It is coming now, but my goodness, the horse has somewhat bolted. Good news anyway. Latvia tells the UK and Western allies to consider conscription as Russia continues to pose a threat to our security and way of life. Interesting this, the Baltic states and the Scandinavian states already do conscription or are reinvigorating conscription. This is something that I think UK would really struggle with. Our modern youth, and I can tell you about that concerning my own kids, they very much like tech, like to sit in the comfort of their own houses. Someone was telling me yesterday that I don't think Britons would be good at it because they're so woke. I don't think it's anything to do with the woke youth in terms of some kind of moral evaluation of lifestyle and of society. I think it's just the kind of society that we have got used to, which is one that is quite comfortable, one that can involve people sitting on tech for an awful long time, not doing anything else. I mean, that's what I do, and I think the idea of that you have to go for some kind of national conscription, British youth will really find difficult. I'm not saying it's a bad thing. I think it might be quite useful. So I don't know. It probably wouldn't be a mass. What Britain would see first would be trying to attract people in a much more concerted effort to join the armed forces rather than forcing them to join. And I think once all of those avenues are properly exhausted, if there was still a necessity, then you might get onto some kind of conscription. But I can't see that happening in Britain anytime soon. Let me know what you think about that, and concerning your own country as well, what the situation is. I know many European countries do have some kind of national conscription in place already. Is that looking at being increased? How's that looking in terms of is that enough at the moment for what you think the needs might be? Answers on a postcard. Caitlin Collins from CNN here, interviewing a Republican lawmaker here, a representative as well, so the House of Representatives. This guy needs to be congratulated for his views on Ukraine. I can't speak to any of his other views on, say, the border and Israel and whatnot. But on Ukraine, this is refreshingly brilliant, right? And if you can reach out to him, Fitzpatrick, please say that is really cool, because when Republicans buck the trend in terms of what the perception is of some Republican lawmakers with regards to supporting Ukraine, then that needs to be celebrated, because they need to be given the impetus to continue fighting the good fight there. So he said, Brian Fitzpatrick says he's just got back from Kiev, and this is so important. I think that many, particularly Republicans who are naysayers to Ukraine aid, should go to Ukraine and experience Ukraine. Says Ukraine has weeks, not months, to resupply munitions. Speaker Johnson hasn't assured him he'll bring his aid bill to the floor, but he makes clear he'll force it if necessary. We will find a way to get this to the floor. It could be a discharge petition, could be another way. Check out what he says. I'm going to play this in full.
I'm sensitive right now. Adiva fell because of the shortage of artillery.
You certainly have the resolve, I should say, but we also hear from other Republicans who have resolve, but from a different perspective. People like Marjorie Taylor Greene, who say Ukraine aid is not getting a vote on the floor. If the Speaker doesn't bring it, are you going to join with Democrats to force a vote on your bill?
We will find a way to get this to the floor. Mark my words.
You're confident.
So he doesn't give too much detail there, but he's saying the right things. I mean, check out his tie as well.
I am. There's a 2-vote margin. We all represent roughly 800,000 people. Everyone gets to be a voice for their constituents. The good people in my hometown of Bucks and Montgomery counties believe in supporting Ukraine, supporting democracy, supporting freedom, opposing dictatorships, and we will reflect that voice on the floor of the House. And you know, I'm one of 435, Caitlin, so I can't, steer the ship completely on my own. But part of what I'm doing is building a coalition. With my bill, the Defending Borders, Defending Democracies Act, it is equally bipartisan. It addresses border security for our own nation to stop the deadly flow of fentanyl that's killing our kids. And it also deals with Ukraine, Israel, and Taiwan, all freedom-loving democracies that have been invaded either by communist dictators or terrorists. And borders and democracies are interlinked. They're interchangeable. They stand side by side. And that's the theme of our bill. And that's why it's equally bipartisan. I'm sensitive.
So, yeah, I think generally saying the right things there. I mean, I don't know the details of a bill he's proposing, but it's good to see a Republican go to Kiev, to go to Ukraine, to come back and advocate for Ukraine so strongly. Now, sources inside Kiev have confirmed that over recent weeks, meetings involving Ukrainian Defense Minister Rustem Umerov have included discussions about approaching the Albanese government to donate, the Australian government, to donate all 59 tanks that make up Australia's older fleet. These are older Abrams tanks that they've been touted before as potentials for Ukraine. So Ukraine is, in short, Ukraine is finalising another formal request to acquire the Australian Army's M1A1 Abrams tanks, which are due to be replaced by upgraded versions. Sources inside Kiev have confirmed that Ukraine Defence Minister has discussed these, all 59 of them. What's next? Australia's Defence Minister says Abrams tanks are not on the agenda, but Australia will continue to consult with Ukraine to best support its needs in its war with Russia. Get it done. If you're Australian, put pressure on the government. Send out letters and tweets to Australian MPs and lawmakers. Please do. The Netherlands announced the transfer of a Vera NG radar to Ukraine. It provides an advanced and modern passive surveillance system designed to detect, locate, identify, and track air, ground, and sea targets. Really good news there for the Dutch, who seem to be consistently doing a good job in supporting Ukraine. As of today, since the start of the full-scale invasion by Russia in February 2022, Germany has provided Ukraine with 32.3 billion euros in bilateral aid. That's a plus of 4.5 billion euros in aid since the last update made about 2 months ago. It says German aid to Ukraine, who is advocating, for good reason, that Germany is helping. He's advocating for Germany. I think it's really frustrating listening again. I don't want to. It's all about Trump, blah blah blah. But Trump again said in a town hall the other night that America had given 120 billion. He was actually corrected by Laura Ingraham, by the way, but it kind of went by the wayside. But he was still like giving incorrect numbers about what the US has done, and then giving incorrect numbers of what Europe's done about how they haven't paid their way. And actually, it's just not true. And he needs to be called out on it, because if he's believing that himself, I don't think he's lying on purpose. I think he's just got incorrect data in his head. Then that is misinforming the American public with the state of play, with American support and the rest of the world's support and European support. And it's unfair for someone to be able to disinform or misinform the public in that way. German aid to Ukraine again, saying a brief update on the training of Ukrainian soldiers on the 6 pledged Sea King Mark 41 helicopters. Ukraine is still determining where the Sea Kings will be deployed, which is why no personnel have yet been sent to Germany, but the training is expected to start very soon, so hopefully that can be expedited. They will be very useful for the Ukrainians, any kit like that. Ursula von der Leyen, well, actually a number of people are in Ukraine today, in Kiev today. A number of world leaders are there to mark the 2-year anniversary, and indeed a Senate contingent is there too. Here, Ursula von der Leyen is handing over 50 new vehicles funded by the EU to the Ukrainian police. They will help them with their daily work to bring security and stability in the territories liberated by the brave Ukrainian armed forces and support the population. The EU is in solidarity in action, she says. Good stuff there. Excellent support from the EU. More of that, please. Ukrainian crowdfunding campaign raises $7.8 million for sea drone fleet in a record 36 hours. This is absolutely outstanding. A crowdfunding campaign to raise money to produce maritime drones has raised enough money for 35 naval drones, worth in total $7.77 million in a record 36 hours. Ukrainian fundraising platform United 24. So United 24 are doing a fabulous job, and I know many of you have supported United 24 previously. 47th Mechanized Brigade putting new technology to use. Ammunition is delivered to the very front line trenches with the help of ground drones, UGVs, unmanned ground drones vehicles. They can deliver safely stuff to the front, and as long as you can safely get out the trench to pick it up, then that is good news for, in this case, Ukrainians. We know that the Russians are also doing similar, it must be said. As agreed yesterday, Poland again allows military aid into Ukraine. So they have hopefully opened at least some of these border choke points. As you can see, we've got military equipment that was needing to come in, ready and waiting at the border, held up by those Polish farmers, particularly. That has been a real issue for the Ukrainians for some time, and it continues to be so. It's just so frustrating that they are not only wasting Ukrainian grain by kind of ruining some of the grain transports, but also stopping aid coming in. What's doubly frustrating is this is about Ukrainian exports coming out of Ukraine, yet they are not blocking the routes going out of Ukraine. They're blocking the roads coming in. That makes me wonder who is really behind that. Whether the farmers do have genuine issues that need resolving, but why are they blocking aid coming in rather than exports going out when it is the exports going out that they are complaining about? That is a really significant point to make there, observation to make, I think. Last year, Russia produced about 2 million 122 mil and 152 mil shells. This year, they want to increase it to 2.7 million, according to the GUR deputy head, Major General Vadim Skibitsky. That will be worrying if they can do so. There's some satellite imagery analysis taking place here. Hizo J here, saying while this 2S5 Jiatsin S storage was still largely untouched in May 2023, 88 vehicles left compared to 99 in May 2021. The 2S4 Tulpan, so the Tulpan, they're the tulips, 240mm self-propelled mortar storage, that has been significantly depleted. A third of those have been taken, with 126 left compared to 182 pre-invasion. Very conservative counting. There's an analysis hopefully coming on a video, I think he says, fourth and last two S5 Jietsin S storage in Omsk. Being the last, I presume the others have now been exhausted. Anyway, I look forward to seeing some more analysis on this, because the stockpiles are super important for how long Russia can keep replenishing their artillery on the front lines. They're losing massive amounts every day. Are the ones that are left able to be cannibalized? Are they uncannibalizable? That's not a word, but should be. Is it that the condition of those remaining is too poor for them to be usable, or are these still stockpiles they can draw from? More on that hopefully soon. Right, now talking about geopolitical things, as mentioned, many people in Kiev. But I just want to highlight Biden here as saying something that is good, right? He says, a dictator bent on rebuilding an empire will never be able to erase a people's love of liberty. Brutality will never grind down the will of the free, and Ukraine will never be a victory for Russia. Now, what I like about this is it's really bloody obvious where his moral evaluation is and where his sympathies lie concerning Ukraine and Russia. When I look at the alternative, when I look at someone like Trump, the only time he supports Ukraine is when he says he himself will solve it within 24 hours. So it's always about him. He's so narcissistic that instead of saying something nice about Ukraine, like, yeah, they're fighting for their liberty and I will support them to the end and Slava Ukraini, like he instead, or Slava Ukraini, he says stuff like, I'll solve it in 24 hours. So it's not about supporting Ukraine. It's about making him look good. Right? No one can argue with this point because it is in his rhetoric that has been recorded time and time again. You tell me where he's been super, super positive about Ukraine in a kind of moral sense, political sense, like Biden has been here. And I'll walk some of that back. But as far as I'm concerned, everything he says is some kind of reflection on him personally. And it would be nice to hear this kind of rhetoric from alternate leaders in the US, like Trump. But you just don't hear it. And then when you listen to him say that Ukraine will have to concede territory to Russia, he's just saying the wrong things. And so kudos to Biden here, and I'm not trying to be pro-Biden here. I'm trying to be pro-Ukraine, and I get from Biden more pro-Ukraine stuff than I get from other lawmakers in the US and potential leaders like Trump. Nikki Haley says most of the right things as well. It has to be said, and that's why if I was a Republican, I would be backing Nikki Haley over Trump every day of the week, sometimes 4 times in a day. There's a US Senate delegation in Kiev at the moment. So that is good news. We've got Chuck Schumer there. I don't know some of these others. Is that Victoria Spot? The Ukrainian Ukrainian heritage. She's of Ukrainian heritage, lawmaker in the US. I think that might be, but I'm not 100% sure. Need to check some of those others. Is that Turner there? I don't know. Anyway, EU unlocks 137 billion 137 billion euros for Poland, sets aside 1.4 billion for farmers. Interesting. Polish farmers have blocked Ukrainian border for 4 months, significantly affecting Ukrainian trade. However, neither the former nor current Polish government has effectively addressed the issue. I wonder whether this will help. You'd hope so. Also, I wonder whether this is a sign that Poland are moving in the right direction in terms of reversing the democratic backsliding that was taking place, which was what was happening with PIS. So PIS was seen by the EU as moving in the wrong direction, away from the EU and away from democratic ideals, particularly in the case of the media and whatnot. So I wonder whether that's been released because they're showing the right signs. Italian Prime Minister is also in Kiev at the moment at a ceremony at Hostinel Airport. She said, Europe, the West is here to celebrate love because, in fact, the defenders of Ukraine have protected what they hold dear, what they love, and what they have protected. And they have protected us. Sorry, I'm butchering what she said. I'm sure it's wonderful. I butchered it. So, to say again, Europe and the West is here to celebrate love because, in fact, the defenders of Ukraine have protected what they hold dear, what they love, and they have protected us. In addition, the President of the European Commission, that's Ursula von der Leyen, Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau, Belgian Prime Minister Alexander De Croo, and Italian Prime Minister Giorgia Meloni have arrived in Kiev, which is, as mentioned, good news. And guess who else is there? Boris Dobry Johnson is back in Ukraine, the former UK Prime Minister, to mark the second anniversary. He heads a number of leaders, including from Italy. I don't think he heads them. I think that's rather wishful thinking from Tim White. But all those people already mentioned, including Chuck Schumer. Jens Stoltenberg is saying the right things on this 2-year anniversary. Ukraine will join NATO. It's not a question of if, but when. President Putin started this war because he wanted to close NATO's doors and take away Ukraine's right to choose its own path, but he has achieved the exact opposite. Ukraine is now closer to NATO than ever before. Absolutely right. And Putin has also made Ukraine have a sense of national identity that it never would have dreamed of having. There's an international recognition of who Ukraine what Ukraine is and who Ukrainians are in terms of their flag, their culture, their language. Everything about Ukraine has been heightened since Russia invaded. We know more about Ukraine than we ever would have hoped to have known 5 years ago, right? This is one of the biggest own goals for Vladimir Putin. I want to eradicate Ukrainian identity off the face of the earth, off the map, and he's done nothing but solidify their sense of who they are and everyone else's perception of who Ukraine is. Right, borders, says Olaf Scholz, cannot be changed by force. He's addressed the second anniversary of the war. German Chancellor assured Ukraine of further support and emphasised the need to strengthen the policy of deterrence and defence in Europe. People are saying the right things today, which is good news. And I'm going to leave you with Gabrielis Landsbergis. He is, if you don't know him, he is one of the staunchest supporters of Ukraine. So he's the Lithuanian Foreign Affairs Minister. And I've meant to refer to him like umpteen times before, but just haven't. This is quite a long thread, but well worth listening to because this, I think, sums everything up. So this is a good place to end today's video. Today, we, the Baltic states, so that's, if you don't know, Estonia, Latvia and Lithuania, and Czechia, come to this council to address the entire international community with a very simple message. For all our sakes, wake up. Madam President, I speak on behalf of Czechia, Estonia, Latvia and my own country, Lithuania, today and tomorrow. Many will yet again call on Russia to end its brutal war against Ukraine. Many will say that Russia's unprovoked aggression goes against everything these United Nations stand for. Some will question the credibility of this council to defend a rules-based international order. But however loud and eloquent we are, our protests and outrage will barely register in Moscow, and rockets will continue to rain down on Ukrainian homes, hospitals, and schools. Today, we are facing choices that might well define this century, just as the choices in the 1930s defined the previous century. Do we continue to appease the aggressor who is patient and meticulous in his attempts to turn everything this organisation holds dear into a mockery? Do we once again allow him to escape responsibility for his aggression? Do we continue to feed him with lives and land, misled by our fear of escalation and naive hopes that this time he will be fully satisfied? Today, we come to this council to address the entire international community with a very simple message. For all our sakes, wake up. If we fail, the rules-based order will crumble. Ukraine's sovereignty, Europe's security, as well as the success of global efforts for human rights, accountability, food security, and nuclear safety will all be in the hands of those who benefit from disruption and chaos. History reminds us of the terrible cost of the wrong choices. Hedging our bets earned us nothing but more war. Russia is being emboldened by our cautious response. We will see it emboldened in Ukraine. We will see it emboldened in Russia itself, eliminating any opposition, aiming to destroy any hope for a different Russia, a normal, peaceful Russia. Revisionist powers across the world are already exploiting our indecisiveness. If not contained, this Kremlin-driven arc of instability will continue to expand, igniting more conflicts that we are not prepared to counter. Ukraine may seem far away, and the world's attention is divided. But it is imperative to realise that Russia's aggression against Ukraine ultimately impacts us all. The war must be won, and won decisively. This is not just Europe's war. It is a challenge to the international order, which, while imperfect, aims to ensure that law, rather than military might, determines our borders and sovereignty. The choices we make at this crossroads will define how we are remembered. We have the capacity to win as Ukraine continues to make enormous sacrifices to stand against the ruthless aggressor. History reminds us of the cost of our past mistakes. We must also find the political will to come up with an adequate legal response to Russia's illegal war of territorial conquest. Russia's leadership must bear full responsibility for the aggression launched by Vladimir Putin. Otherwise, his impunity will continue. Madam President, I would like to remind all those here today that Estonia, Latvia, and Lithuania have been occupied, colonized, and exploited by this same aggressor more than once. More than once. And that is why we know from bitter experience that whatever words are spoken, whatever agreements are signed, this aggressor has no plans to stop until he is stopped. Thank you. Thank you, Gabrielius Landsbergis. My friends, yet again, and I say this because it's a 2-year anniversary, but Slava Ukraini. Let's do everything we can to stop this aggressor.